Hi, boys and girls. It's Teacher Kate from Kate's Kindergarten. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited to sing the alphabet song with you, and then we're going to read some stories. Are you ready? A, oops, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. Now I know my ABCs, and next time won't you sing with me? Thank you for singing the alphabet song with me, boys and girls. Today, we are going to read books. Let's start with the letter E. We write the letter E the same way every time. We start at the top and we come down. Pick up our pencil, go back to the top and go 1, 2, 3. And it's so important, remember what I've always told you, it's so important to write the letters the same way every time. The first book we're going to read is called Engelbert the Elephant by Tom Paxton and illustrated by Stephen Kellogg. Let's find out what happens to Engelbert today. To relieve her royal boredom, the queen announced a dance. See the queen? She's telling the people who work for her, we're going to have a dance. Invitations were delivered. So there are going to be invitations. The invitations are going out. Through an oversight who I really can't recall, Engelbert the elephant was invited to the ball. Oh my goodness. An elephant going to a royal ball? Such excitement in the jungle. Such a holy hullabaloo. Such a race to find a costume and learn a step or two. So there's Engelbert. He's getting ready. I don't know if this has ever happened before. You could feel the jungle shaking, and I'm sure it's shaking still, while Engelbert was learning how to dance the minuet. Isn't that so silly? He's learning how to dance. What do you think these gorillas are thinking? They're like, or these monkeys, oh, I better get out of the way. Engelbert, he's doing his best to get ready for the ball. The village lamps were lighted. The sun was going down when shrieks of fear and frantic cries were heard across the town. An elephant is coming. An elephant is coming. Call the army and rouse the guard. Can you see people are really getting upset? There's Engelbert coming into town. The troops surrounded Engelbert. Oh my goodness. Outside the palace yard, the officers in chorus cried, "You'll have to leave this place. There'll be no riffraff at the ball by order of her grace." So all the soldiers are saying, you have to go. But Engelbert Engelbert astounded them by pulling from his vest the document that proved he was the royal couple's guest. So here it says, the royal ball, Engelbert the elephant. So the soldiers formed an escort and they led him to the ball where the orchestra stopped playing and a hush went through the hall. I think people are going to be pretty surprised to see him. Though the king and queen were speechless, and I'm sure they're speechless now, Engelbert the elephant made a very lovely bow. Look at the queen and the king, and this is Engelbert making his bow. How shocking, cried a duchess. It's a scandal, humped an earl. That horrible beast will trample us, exclaimed a foolish girl. Don't they know that Engelbert is really nice? The panic seized the courtyards. The banquet was upset. And if it wasn't for Her Majesty, they would all be running yet. Oh my gosh, look at Engelbert and this mess of people. Everyone's running. They're all afraid. They don't know that he is friendly. Stop at once, Her Grace commanded. The courtiers froze, and then the queen advanced toward Engelbert, who bowed to her again. The queen is going to stop all of this hullabaloo. The queen began to smile, and the band began to play. So the queen is sort of setting the tone here. She said, it's okay. And Engelbert the elephant was dancing in the very nicest way. Look at the look on the queen's face. How do you think the queen feels right now? She looks pretty happy. The ladies were delighted at the way he turned and spun. And before the night was over, Engelbert had danced with everyone. When they all sat down to dinner, neatly rescued from the floor, Engelbert just nibbled, though he dreamed of eating more. Oh, look, he's being very polite and not eating too much, but he really wants to eat a lot. When the final dance was called for, such a sigh you've never seen. For the elephant was chosen as the partner of the queen. Oh, look at them dancing. The queen's hair is flowing. Engelbert is so happy. Now, when the ball was over, though the hour was very late, the guests all followed Engelbert outside the village gate. Now everyone's leaving. His jungle friends were waiting there. The band began to play. Oh my goodness, everyone's waiting. And the frolicking that followed is still talked about today. Now just have a look at this picture, boys and girls. Oh my goodness. Everyone's dancing. The animals and the people are dancing. Everyone is so happy. Everyone is getting along. And that's the story of Engelbert the elephant. And look, the queen sent him the cake. And the little envelope here, down here, it says, "To my beloved friend Engelbert, from your devoted queen." And that is the story of Engelbert, Engelbert the elephant. The letter E is our letter of the day. And boys and girls, the second book that I would like to share with you today is called On a Beam of Light. It's a story about a very famous person called Albert Einstein. Einstein, see his name, starts with our letter of the day, which is why I chose this book to read with you. I wanted you to know more about him. Over 100 years ago, as the stars swirled in the sky, as the earth circled the sun, as the March winds blew through a little town by a river, a baby boy was born. His parents named him Albert. Albert turned 1 year old, and he didn't say a word. Albert turned 2 years old, and he still didn't say a word. Albert turned 3 years old, and guess what? He hardly said a word at all. He just looked around with his big, curious eyes, looked and wondered, looked and wondered. His parents worried. Little Albert was so different, and was there something wrong? But he was their baby, so they loved him no matter what. His dad says, so different, but so dear. One day, when Albert was sick in bed, his father brought him a compass. You know what a compass is, boys and girls? A compass is an instrument that if you hold it flat in your hand, it will tell you which direction is north, south, east, and west. His father brought him a compass, a small round case with a magnetic needle inside. See, he's holding the compass. No matter which way Albert turned the compass, the needle always pointed north, as if it had an invisible hand. Albert was so amazed by this compass that his body trembled. Suddenly, he knew there were mysteries in the world, hidden and silent, unknown and seen. He wanted more than anything to understand those mysteries. Albert started asking questions. Questions at home, questions at school, so many questions that some of his teachers told him he was being a disruption to the class. They said he would never amount to anything unless he learned to behave like all the other students. But Albert didn't want to be like the other students. He wanted to discover the hidden mysteries of the world. One day, as Albert was zipping through the countryside on his bicycle, he looked up at the beams of sun speeding from the sun to the earth. He wondered, what would it be like to ride one of those beams? And in his mind, right then and there, Albert was no longer on his bicycle, no longer on a country road. He was imagining that he was racing through space on a beam of light. It was the biggest, most exciting thought Albert had ever had, and it filled his mind with questions. Albert began to read and study. Reading is one of my favorite things to do. He read about light and sound. He read about heat and magnetism, and about gravity, the invisible force that pulls us toward our planet and keeps the moon from floating away from outer space. Magnetism, gravity, light, sound. These were all concepts that Albert wanted to find out more about. And he read about numbers. Albert loved numbers. They were like a secret language for figuring things out. But all that reading still didn't answer all of Albert's questions. So he kept an eye on reading wondering, and learning. When Albert graduated from college, he wanted to teach the subjects he loved, all of the things he had read about all those years. But Albert couldn't find a job as a teacher. So he got a simple, quiet job in a government office. The office where he worked with other people's inventions and ideas. He did his work very well and very quickly, so quickly that he had lots of extra time to think and wonder. Albert watched a lump of sugar dissolve in his hot tea. How could this happen? Albert watched the smoke from his pipe swirl and disappear into the air. How could one thing disappear into another? It's a great question, isn't it, boys and girls? Then he began to figure it all out. He thought about the idea that everything is made out of teeny tiny moving little bits of stuff, far too tiny to see. Little bits called atoms. A-T-O-M-S. Some people didn't believe that atoms existed, but Albert's figuring helped prove that everything in the world is made of atoms. See how all these people look like they're made of little tiny dots? Atoms are so small we cannot even see them with our eye. Even sugar and tea, even smoke and air, even Albert and, boys and girls, you. Even this book is made of atoms, he said. Then Albert thought about motion. He realized that everything is always in motion. Moving through space, moving through time, even sound asleep, we're moving as our planet circles the sun and our lives travel into the future. Albert saw time and space as no one had ever seen them before. So even when he's going to sleep at night, he's lying awake thinking about all these great questions. Albert wrote down his new ideas, put them into envelopes, and sent them to science magazines. The magazines printed everything Albert sent. He hoped that science and professors would be interested, and they were. Very interested indeed. They asked Albert to come and work with them and teach them. For the first time in his life, people started to say, actually, Albert Einstein is a genius. Now Albert could spend all his days doing what he loved, imagining, wondering, figuring, and thinking. Albert is a genius. Albert thought about very, very big things, like the size and shape of the entire universe. And he also thought about very, very small things, like what goes on inside the atoms that everything is made of. He thought about mysterious forces like magnetism and gravity. He discovered whole new ways to understand how all these things work. Big things and little things, boys and girls, he thought about them all. Everywhere Albert went, he would think and think. One of Albert's favorite places to think was on a little sailboat. He loved to let his mind wander as the wind blew him across the water. Looks very peaceful, doesn't it? Sometimes when you're peaceful and quiet and there's no noise, that's when we do our best thinking. Sometimes when Albert was having a tough time with a tricky problem, he would set that tricky problem aside and he would play his violin. Music made Albert happier. He said it helped him to think better. Sometimes when we're creating music, our mind is able to open up in a new way that it wasn't open up to before, and he is able to think about things a little differently. In the town where he lived, he became known for wandering around deep in thought, sometimes eating an ice cream cone. always recognizable with his long, wild hair, which by then had become quite white. Do you enjoy eating ice cream cones, boys and girls? I know I really enjoy eating ice cream cones. Here he is. What is he doing in all these pictures? What's he doing here? He's skating. Here he is in his beloved sailboat. Here he is driving a car. Here he is riding a bike. Everywhere Albert went, he tried to figure out the secrets of the universe. He never forgot about the beam of light that he rode on so long ago in his imagination. Albert figured out that no person, no thing could ever zoom through space as fast as a beam of light. He figured that if he could only travel near the speed of light, crazy things would happen. Only minutes would pass for Albert, while years and years went by for the rest of us. This idea was so amazing, people didn't believe it at first. But today, scientists have proven that it's true. Albert Einstein was really ahead of his time with the concepts that he was thinking of. Albert thought and figured until the very last minute of the very last day of his life. He asked questions never before asked. He found answers never found before. He dreamed up ideas never dreamt before. Albert's ideas helped build spaceships and satellites and travel to the moon and beyond. Some of his ideas helped scientists. They were the building blocks that allowed us to do those things. His thinking helped us understand our universe as no one has ever done before. But still, Albert left so many big questions that scientists are working on today. Questions that someday you might answer by wondering, thinking, and imagining. So that could be you, boys and girls. And I think one of the beautiful lessons of Einstein is to always be curious, always be learning. I'm always reading a book or trying to learn something new, even though I'm really old. I'm 51. And I think being a lifelong learner is a beautiful lesson from Albert Einstein. Stay curious about our universe. Make time for just quiet time for yourself, where you can just sit and think, not any distractions. And remember Albert Einstein and all of the lessons that he taught us. The important thing is not to stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing. So never stop questioning things, boys and girls. I hope you have enjoyed our letter of the day, which was what letter, boys and girls, do you remember? Letter E. And I can't wait to see you back here next time in Teacher Kate's Kindergarten. And until then, remember that I love you so much. Be kind, be friendly, and be helpful to everyone you meet. Have a great day.